Okay, sorry, just getting my timer set. So, where were we? Talking about changes to Mecton Z charges. Looking at the Pathfinder rules, apparently they have a slightly different system. You basically, staves get a pool of 10 charges, and you can use those, and then they recharge at 1 per day. I liked the 10 pool idea, but I think that the recharge rate should be a little bit higher than 1, because that basically means you could blow it all in 1 day, and then not be able to effectively use it for 2 to 3 days. And quite frankly, I'd much rather have a shorter time scale than that. I was thinking about the nature of role-playing games, and how there's a circle of time availability. I was thinking of trying to do a diagram for this, but I'll probably just use my hands, because I can probably use it that way. Okay. The radius of the circle determines the time that you have access to the person that you're talking about. You start at a point, and you can go out. Now, in regular storytelling, like a book or a movie or something else like that, movies are particularly contracted. You only have 2 hours to tell a story, and because it's linear, there's no interactivity, it only goes in one direction. It can go in any direction, that circle, and those are all the different plots in the world and all the different possibilities, but essentially, you can only go in one direction. Novels are larger, and you can kind of deke your way across the field, but still, once again, it's linear. You're going outwards. I'm actually this idea came to me from playing through Crisis 2. And they touted on all the videos that it was going to be an open world aspect, and you're going to be able to run around New York City and do all this amazing stuff, but all it really was like, okay, the gaming equivalent of a story where you have no control over the directionality is a rail shooter. Essentially, you're on a single track, and you can't choose where you go, you can only aim. You could also say that the games where you were basically just scrolling in one direction, you really didn't have that much control about where you went. You could only go right, you could only go up. But that you had a path that you could travel along. And the sense I got with Crisis 2 was that it was a moderately wide path, but it was still just a unidirectional path. It's unlike Crisis, that was more like circles, where you would travel. You'd have linear connection points between circles, but once you got into one of those circles, you could do whatever you wanted, run around, but you were still bounded. There were limits that you couldn't go beyond. And how does that relate to the circle analogy in time? It's that, as I see it, you have kind of a circle where a player can interact. Then there's a connection at the edge of the bubble where they intersect, and then another one, another one, another one, another one. And each one of these has kind of a limited amount of time that you can spend in there, or it's a useful period of time you can spend in there. But in role-playing games, you really don't have that. The only restrictions are what the game master is willing to put on something. And sometimes those are very tight, sometimes they're not. But just something to think about, that don't necessarily think about when you're designing a game that it has to be as wide open as possible. It's always good to put limitations on things. It makes people focus. It brings out, in my opinion, the best in your creativity. Don't make it linear. Don't force people down one path, but give 3 to 4 different possible paths. Don't leave everything open, then the players won't know what to do, they won't know where to go. But yeah, a wide path. That way you can kind of plan things out, and you can figure out where you're going. But how much time have I got left? Oh, almost done. Anyway, more to come.